the new standards is doing a survey and creating a survey. Okay? So we're going to learn how surveys work a little bit and how we pick samples of different people to take surveys. And then the next performance task is we're going to create this huge survey that we administer, and we're going to calculate a whole bunch of data from that survey. And then different data than what we did with the SAT survey. Okay? Alright, so we're going to be talking about selecting and drawing conclusions and samples. So conclusions from samples. We're in section 11.4 from Algebra 2. Okay? We need to write down those two definitions. A population and a sample. Those are not typed for you. Sorry. Start writing, guys. Okay. Headphones out, please. Alright, a population is a group of people or objects that you want information about. In our case, we're going to use people, okay? But this is also kind of the basis of designing an experiment, which we would use in science, which typically we don't experiment too much on people, right? We tend to experiment on objects and things. Depends on what kind of science you're doing, okay? That's why they're saying objects, all right? A sample, so a population, so example of a population is we went out and found a population of students that had taken the SATs, right? Okay? A sample is a subset of the population being studied. A sample could have been maybe those that had taken the SATs that were in AP Calculus. Okay? Alright, so there's different types of samples. That's what we're going to talk about on the next screen here. So, there's the first one. You don't necessarily need to write every little word. You don't need to write the picture. Okay? If it was me, I would write self-selected sample, and members of population volunteer to be in sample. We got some words. So self-selected is a volunteer thing. Okay? Kind of like how you get the phone calls at home, right? Phone calls at home at night, the annoying phone calls that nobody picks up anymore because we all have caller ID, right? They call, they ask you to take a survey. Technically, you're self-selecting your sample because they're volunteering to be in your survey. Okay? Alright. Another one is that sometimes moms that are really into couponing and those kind of things, they'll sign up to be like on a panel that evaluates products. That's a self-selected sample. Okay. Alright. A systematic sample is when a rule is used to select members of a population. You don't necessarily need to write down, such as selecting every other person. Okay? So, you know, you're watching people in a line, you're going to ask every other person in a line the question. Okay? Alright, the third type is called a convenience sample. to reach members of a population are selected. So easy to reach members of a population. Like those in the first. The easiest thing to do for us to take a survey would be to survey our own class, right? They do this in elementary school all the time, right? They make charts based on data they collect within the classroom. Right now, I know my daughter had a survey about bugs, what their favorite bug was.
A spider. Baby spider.
I think the winner was the butterfly, but I'm not sure.
It's still a bug.
I'm sure now they've moved on to farm animals because that's the last unit of the year. Alright, the last sample type is called a random sample. And this is each member of a population has an equal chance of being selected. So each member has an equal chance of selection. So what we're going to do in the first few questions, in the first few examples, is we're going to identify what type of sample we are using. Okay? Probably the closer we can get a survey to a random, probably the better. But you know, sometimes we have purpose in doing a self-selected or a systematic or a convenient sample. Okay?
So I can just put random down for everything?
No, you cannot put random down for everything. Sorry. Alright, the good news is we get to do some examples before we write any more definitions. Okay? Alright, so, example 1, go ahead and glue it down. Give you a minute to glue. Okay. So, we've got a sports writer who wants to survey college baseball coaches about whether they think wooden bats would be mandatory throughout college baseball. Identify the type of sample described. So, in part A, a sports writer contacts only coaches that he has cell phone numbers of in order to get quick responses. So what kind of a sample is that? That's a convenience sample, right? I'm not going to spell it right. Convenience sample. Okay? Why is it a convenience sample?
Because it's easy to read.
Yeah, it's easy to get to the people, right? Because they're in his address book and his cell phone. Yes?
So basically when you get that call from people who sample you, that's a convenience sample too?
Not necessarily. It could be random. It depends on how they're getting their data. Okay? Because this is a guy who knows you, right? So that's a convenient sample for him. Most likely the phone calls at home, they're using somebody's list, right? You're on some list somewhere. Like, I know we get ones from the Republican Party all the time because my husband's on a list somewhere. Okay? So, that necessarily isn't a convenience sample. Alright?
Oh my gosh, my back.
Alright, so a sports writer mails out surveys to all the coaches and uses only the surveys that are returned. What's that?
Self-selected.
That's a self-selection, right? Because the people who wanted to participate actually participated, right?
Yes.
Alright, looking at example 2. Let's glue that one in real quick. Okay? You get it glued in, read it, see if you can decide which types it is. Alright, school lunch. A teacher wants to survey everyone at your school about the quality of school lunches. Identify the type of sample described. So, in A, the teacher surveys every 7th student that goes through the lunch line. What's that?
It's a systematic survey.
That's a systematic survey. Because she is picking, she has a rule, right?
Is it random survey?
You will have to know them. I didn't spell that right anywhere near right, did I? Tick. Okay. For my random name lottery, the teacher chooses 150 students and teachers to survey. What's that? That's your random one.
That one was harder.
Right now, we're going to get into biased and unbiased. That's the next thing. Okay? So, yeah, we're getting in there. Okay?
Is that tomorrow?
In fact, no, that'll be today. And we're actually going to, that's our whole next performance task is biased and unbiased. Alright, last one of this type. Glue that one down. Okay? Once you glue it, see if you can read it and decide which two types they are. Alright, so a manufacturer wants to sample the parts from a production line for defects. The manufacturer has every fifth item on the production line tested for defects. What's that?
Systematic.
Systematic. I cannot do it. I cannot spell today. Okay, and then the manufacturer has the first 50 items on the production line tested. What's that?
Convenience.
That's convenience. Right? Because you just grabbed the first few. Alright, next two definitions, speaking of biased and unbiased.
Oh,
There's the next two. Okay?
This should help you with hero.
Since all of you showed, I'm assuming none of you got pulled for smarter balance during third period, right?
Yes.
I did, but I didn't want to miss your class.
Alright, an unbiased sample is a sample that is representative of the population you want information about. Okay? A biased sample is a sample that overrepresents or underrepresents part of the population. Okay, so let's think about those two things. If, say, we wanted to do an unbiased sampling of students at Tockwitz and by grade level, okay, we would want to have probably about the same proportion of 9th graders surveyed as there are in the class, or as there are at the school. So if there's 40% of the students at Tockwitz are 9th graders, we want to make sure 40% of our survey was 9th graders. Okay? A biased sample would be if we surveyed 60% of our survey was 9th graders, when only 40% of our survey, or 40% of our population is represented by 9th graders. Okay? So that's what they mean by biased and unbiased in a sample set. Okay? We're going to talk about that with questions later. Okay? How a question is asked. Ready? Oops, too fast. Everybody got it? Okay, so go ahead and glue in number 4. Aren't you glad I'm not making you write out the examples? They're much worse than writing out just the definitions.
Aren't you glad I didn't say banana?
It's actually, aren't you glad I didn't say orange? It's the punchline to the joke. I know, it's a classic at our house. She could go on, my daughter could go on orange for like 5 minutes. I can't wait till my son learns that one. He's much more persistent. Alright, so we've got concert attendance. The they've changed many times. Okay. There are concerts for Disney Junior. Okay. There are other people who go to concerts that don't just go to rock concerts. Okay. So they're really doing kind of a convenience sample, right? And that convenience sample has to be biased. So we know it's a biased sample because what's going on? Yeah, only people going to the rock concert are getting asked. So of course those people are going to be going to concerts, right? Or at least one concert during the year, okay? So only people going to concert asked.
So biased would be like a shade way to grocery store.
Unbiased would be, yes, they go to the grocery store and ask how many people go to rock, how many people go to, how many concerts they go to. Correct. It's not directly related. Okay?
So Miss Ballard, what if I was at a Wiggles concert and I asked,
me too.
how many rock concerts do you attend? To keep like that, would that be biased or unbiased?
How many biased? So that would be, I would think that would be unbiased because it's not directly related to what you are, what the population you're asking. If you just say concerts in general, that's wrong. That would be biased.
All right.
Okay? All right. Example 5, glue it down. Okay, so a magazine asks its readers to send in their responses to several questions regarding healthy eating. Tell whether this sample of responses is biased or unbiased.
Anybody can answer the survey.
Okay, anybody can answer the survey. However, is everybody going to choose to answer the survey? No, right? Probably the only people who are going to answer the survey are people who have a strong opinion one way or the other. Right? So what is that? That's biased, right? You're not getting a true random sampling because you're doing a self-selected survey, right?
Yes.
So most self-selected surveys are probably going to be biased, right? They survey you as you're going in and out of Disneyland. If you had a bad day at Disneyland, you're probably going to stop and take that survey and tell them all about it, right?
Yeah.
You're going to stop by City Hall at Disneyland and tell them what a terrible day you had and you wasted your money that day, right? So, when they self-selected, they're most likely biased. So this one's biased because it's more of a self-selected kind of thing. Somebody with a strong opinion is likely to answer the survey. Okay? So because the two reasons we kind of came up with was probably only readers with strong opinions will answer. And kind of because it is self-selected, right? A self-selected survey is probably going to have more bias in it.
So it would be the unbiased situation.
On this one, if they actually sat down again, it would be people and random people on the street, right? They're asking if they do healthy eating. They could be standing in a magazine stand and or Walmart by the magazines and ask those people, right? But as long as if you're self-selecting, you're going to be more biased. Okay? Pretty much a random sample is your only unbiased survey. Yeah. Okay. Luke 6 down. Okay. All right. So, a local politician wants to survey his constituents. He mails his surveys to the constituents that are members of his political party and uses only the surveys that are returned. So is it biased or unbiased?
Biased.
That's definitely biased. There's two reasons though. Okay?
Because convenience.
It's a convenience thing, it's also self-selected, isn't it?
Yes.
So it's self-selected because he only uses the ones that are returned. Because he uses only returned. Okay? And constituent as in his party, and only you mailed to constituents. Okay? Alright. One more. We've actually seen this example already in example 7. We used it already, but I had to find one that was the example of the other direction. Okay?
Bless you. Bless you. Bless you.
We've already done the type of sample. Okay? We talked about that way back, I don't know, example 3 maybe? Example 2. Okay? So, a school teacher wants to survey everyone at his school about the quality of lunches, identify the type of sample, and tell if the sample is biased. From a random name lottery, the teacher surveys 150 students and teachers. So what kind of a survey is it? Random. We already talked about that, okay? Is it biased or unbiased?
Unbiased.
That's an unbiased because it was a random sampling, okay? It also included the students and the teachers. And because it included students and teachers. It was a less specific population, right? It wasn't just the students. It could probably be a little bit more biased. Maybe in one direction or the other, or just the teachers. Maybe the kids like the lunch and the teachers don't like the lunch, so it might come out biased one way or the other.
I don't think anyone likes the school lunch.
Well, I wouldn't know. I don't think I've ever had a school lunch.
You sure it tastes great? It's actual meat.
Alright. Sample size. Okay, glue that one down. I didn't make you write this one down. Okay? Everybody glue it in. Sample size.
What about Costco? Doesn't want to do surveys and plenty of samples. Yeah, they told me that too. Then I took some.
I just noticed that right now. I thought that was part of it.
You should tell them.
That's not a survey, that's free food.
That's delicious.
That's advertising.
What?
They're asking if you like it.
What?
Survey.
That's true.
That's true. If you like it, that's a survey.
We don't. I think it's
Alright. So, when conducting a survey, what kind of survey is it? At Costco, if they tell you if you like it or not, what kind of a survey is it? It's kind of self-selected, it's kind of convenience too, isn't it? Because if you aren't in Costco, they're not going to ask you.
They're not over there, so.
Alright, so sample size. When conducting a survey, you need to make the size of your sample large enough so that it accurately represents the population. As the sample size increases, the margin of error decreases. When we go do our surveys, you guys, we're not going to survey all 1,600 students at Hopkins. We're going to try to get around 100 or so. Okay, survey. Okay? But hopefully, and we'll eventually, part of the task is going to be to calculate the margin of error. Okay? I think I gave those to you too, right?
Yeah.
So glue those two things in. Alright. Well, yes, I know. This is this particular formula.
You told us that you couldn't.
I know. Alright, so that doesn't mean we can't simplify it later, right? We're gonna simplify it, we're not gonna leave it like that. Okay? So the margin of error is the number that gives a limit on how much the responses of the sample would differ from the responses of the population. Okay? So if our sample size is margin of error equals plus or minus 1 over the square root of n. Okay? This means that if the percent of the sampling responding in a certain way is p, then the percent of the population would be the same way as likely to be between p minus 1 over n, 1 over the square root of n, and p plus 1 over the square root of n. Okay, we're going to talk about what that really means here when we try an example. Okay? Okay, got it. All right. So, let's go ahead and we're going to apply that formula in the next one. All right. Example 8 included. Yeah, I know that didn't copy well. Sorry. At least hopefully the numbers were there. It doesn't look good even on my printout. It's my original printout. Okay, so this is all about calculating the margin of error. So, in a survey of 1,011 people, 52% said that the television is their main source of news. Okay? What is the margin of error for the survey? Okay, so that's part A. So let's do part A first of all. Okay? So we know that the formula for margin of error is plus or minus 1 over the square root of n, right? Okay? It's an n. Okay? So, our actual margin of error for this one, what's my n value? Total number of people. 1,011. So in your calculator right now, let's find the decimal point. There's not a plus or a minus, so you're going to do 1 over the square root of 1,011. You need 3 decimal places. Okay, so 0.031 is probably, we probably want to round to 2, right?
Oh no, it's 4, but I mean, that's one.
Oh, 3.1. So 3.
No, it's 0.031.
Okay. The 0 counts as a decimal, as a one place, right? So, if I was going to actually talk about the margin of error, did it say anything about it being a percent?
Yeah.
No. Number of percent. Okay, so typically we express it. Oh, means that if the percent of the sampling, so we typically express it as a percent. So your margin of error.
No, but it says express in decimal. If you go back, it says it is expressed as a decimal.
Oh, in a certain way is p expressed as a decimal, then the percent of the population. So p is a decimal, so you're gonna do your calculation in decimal and convert it to percent is what they're saying. Okay? Alright, so margin of error is going to be, for the survey, is about 3.1%. And remember, the smaller that number is, the better, right? Alright, now we are supposed to give the interval that is likely to contain the exact percent of all the people who use television as their main source of news. So all I'm going to do for that is I'm going to take my 52%, this should be, and I'm going to do 52% minus the 3.1%, and then I'm going to do 52% minus, or plus the 3.1%.
40.
3.1%. Percent sign, sorry, I got sloppy. Alright, so what's 52 minus 32.1? 48.9%, and 51 plus 3.1 is?
55.1%.
55.1%. So we would want to say something. So the exact percent of all people who use TV as the main source of news. I'm leaving words out. That says news. Is between, told you it's going to feel like English today, right? What our smaller number was the 48.9% and 55.1%. 28.6, and then what else do I have to do? Okay, does it really matter what order I do that in? No. What do you get when you subtract? 23.4%. So the exact percent of people who read the newspaper every day. Paper every day is between 23.4% and 28.6%. I know my husband now reads it online. I don't read, so.
You don't read?
Nope.
Can
I
you
read
read?
kids' books sometimes. I don't have time. Or energy for that.
Look at what y'all do.
I read Facebook.
That's not news. That's news people, not news.
I read Pinterest. Alright, glue down example 10. Slightly different way of using this margin of error here. Okay? Alright. Listen. Okay. Shh. A polling company conducts a poll for a U.S. presidential election. How many people did the company survey if the margin of error is plus or minus 5%? So what we're going to do is we're going to use our margin of error formula because we know the margin of error equals plus or minus 1 over the square root of n, right? So what do I actually put in for the margin of error? I'm not going to use a percent though. What am I going to use? 0.05 equals plus or minus 1 over the square root of n. How do I undo the square root? I square both sides. So when I square 0.05, what do I get?
0.02.
Point what?
25.
How many zeros? 2 zeros. Alright, the plus or minus goes away because we squared and I get it over n, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what do I do now to solve for n?
Multiply.
Multiply, so we're going to move multiply here. And then what do I do? Divide to get n by itself. So in your calculator right now, put in 1 divided by 0.0025 and tell me how many people were surveyed.
400.
400 people were surveyed. So do you see how we used the formula backwards on that one?
Yeah.
They gave us the percent. We had to figure out the total number of people surveyed. Okay? Alright, there's one more of those. I'm going to give you a minute. I want you to try example 10 on your own. I'm sorry, 11 on your own. Everybody's doing 11 right now. Move it down and try it. what the other one is.
So is it safe to assume that you can just square whatever is the decimal